When I was 22, I sat across from Daniel in a noisy cafe, clutching a folder full of ideas. We'd both just graduated, both dreaming of breaking into the business world. I thought he was my friend, maybe even more someday. But that afternoon, his words cut deeper than he could ever imagine. Honestly, Emily, you're too ordinary. You don't stand out. People like you never make it big. I laughed nervously, pretending it didn't sting. He leaned back, sipping his coffee like some self-appointed expert, explaining how confidence and charisma mattered more than book smarts. He was already interviewing at flashy firms, convinced he'd climb to the top. Me? I went home that night, closed the door to my tiny apartment, and cried. But beneath the sting, something inside me shifted. If being ordinary meant invisible to him, then I'd build something extraordinary where he could never ignore me again. I didn't tell anyone, not my parents, not my closest friends, but I started saving every cent from my entry-level job. While Daniel posted selfies in expensive suits, I stayed late at night, learning about investing, running side hustles, and sketching out plans for a future no one believed I was capable of. And all the while, his words replayed in my head, too ordinary to succeed. They became my fuel. The first few years were brutal. I worked full-time as an assistant at a mid-sized firm, and every evening I poured myself into small freelance projects, design work, marketing campaigns, anything that paid. I lived on ramen and second-hand clothes, while Daniel posted pictures from rooftop parties and exotic vacations. Sometimes I'd scroll through his feed late at night, my stomach twisting. He looked like the definition of success, while I was counting coins at the grocery store. But I had a secret he didn't: discipline. I wasn't spending, I was building. By the time I was 26, I'd saved enough to launch my first small startup. It failed within a year. My so-called friends shook their heads, and I could almost hear Daniel's smug voice saying, "See? Ordinary. But failure didn't kill me, it taught me." I learned what not to do, where to cut losses, how to pivot fast. The second attempt went better. Then the third. By the time I turned 30, I had a portfolio of investments, a quiet network of mentors, and enough capital to play in bigger leagues. And that's when opportunity came knocking. A mid-sized company, struggling, undervalued, ripe for takeover. To everyone else it looked like a sinking ship. To me, it was the chance of a lifetime. I signed the papers in a quiet office with no cameras, no applause. Just me, the lawyer, and a pen. Nobody knew, not even Daniel. Especially not Daniel. Because fate had plans I couldn't have scripted better myself. 2 months after the acquisition, I made an unannounced visit to the company headquarters. I preferred to keep my identity hidden. On paper, the firm was run by a management group. I liked it that way. No one had to know who really signed the checks. I walked through the glass doors in a plain blazer, blending in like any other visitor. Employees bustled around, the air heavy with deadlines and muted conversations. I was proud of how quickly things were improving. Departments reorganized, salaries stabilized, morale slowly climbing. And then I saw him. Daniel. He was standing by the reception desk, tie loose, papers in his hand. For a second, my brain refused to connect the dots. But there he was, the same man who once told me I'd never amount to anything. Except now, he wasn't the golden boy anymore. He was an employee. In my company. I stayed back, unnoticed, just watching him. He looked older, the shine dimmed, his smile a little forced. A colleague asked him something, and he nodded quickly, almost nervously. This wasn't the confident Daniel from those rooftop parties. This was a man trying to survive in a place where he clearly wasn't king. Inside me, a storm of emotions brewed, satisfaction, disbelief, and a sharp temptation to walk right up to him. To say, "Remember me? The ordinary one." But I didn't. Not yet. I wanted him to find out slowly, piece by piece, until the realization hit with full weight. I decided to keep playing the invisible hand. It was too delicious to rush. From behind the scenes, I asked the management team to implement a few changes, policies that mirrored ideas I'd once shared with Daniel back in college, the very ones he had laughed at. At first, he didn't notice. He just followed along, probably thinking it was corporate restructuring. But then one afternoon, in a meeting, I watched him freeze as the manager said. These new initiatives came directly from the owner. They believe in investing in employee growth over flashy image. Smart move, if you ask me. Daniel's brow furrowed. I almost laughed. He used to mock me for being too cautious, too focused on substance over appearances. And now he was praising those same values without realizing they came from me. The best part? He was struggling. His numbers weren't great, his old charm didn't carry the same weight here. More than once I saw him hovering near the coffee machine, venting to colleagues about how this place doesn't reward charisma anymore. It's all about results. Exactly. I sat quietly in the corner of the cafeteria one day, unnoticed, sipping my tea, while he complained. If only he knew the ordinary girl he dismissed was the one setting the rules he now had to follow. The temptation to reveal myself grew stronger every time I saw him flinch at another policy shift. But I wasn't ready yet. I wanted the timing to be perfect, when his pride was at its lowest, when he realized charm alone couldn't save him. That moment was coming. I could feel it. It happened during a quarterly review meeting. I slipped quietly into the back of the room, blending in with the managers and assistants. Daniel was presenting his team's results, standing at the front with that old familiar swagger. Except this time, it cracked. His numbers were weak. His charts didn't match the targets. And when the department head pressed him for details, Daniel stammered. The silence in the room was heavy. I watched his confidence crumble, piece by piece. The man who once called me too ordinary to succeed now looked ordinary himself, sweating under the fluorescent lights, trying to spin excuses that nobody bought. Afterward, I lingered in the hallway. I overheard two employees whispering. Wasn't Daniel supposed to be this hotshot? Yeah. Word is if he doesn't shape up, he might be out next quarter. I should have felt pity. But instead, there was a quiet satisfaction. He had built his whole identity on being untouchable, special. And now, he was just another struggling employee under my roof. That evening, I sent a note through the management team. Stricter accountability, no more empty promises. Real performance would be the only thing rewarded. The memo spread fast. I imagined Daniel reading it at his desk, jaw tight, realizing the world had shifted against him. And he had no idea the person behind it all was the same woman he once dismissed like she was nothing. It was a Tuesday morning when fate finally pushed us face to face. I had come into the office for a quiet walkthrough, dressed simply in black slacks and a cream blouse, nothing flashy, nothing that screamed owner. I liked blending in. As I stepped out of the elevator, I almost collided with him. Papers slipped from his hands, scattering across the polished floor. "Oh, sorry," I said softly, bending to help. He looked up, and his eyes narrowed in confusion. Recognition flickered. "Emily." I smiled politely, handing him the papers. "Daniel, it's been a while." For a second, he seemed thrown off, like seeing me there didn't make sense. Then came that old smirk, though weaker now. "Wow, you work here. Didn't expect to find you in this place." I shrugged. Life has funny ways of surprising us. He chuckled, trying to reclaim his old confidence. "Well, I hope they're not giving you too much boring work. This company's tough if you're not cut out for it." His words stung faintly, like an echo from the past, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I let my smile linger. "Don't worry about me. I'm exactly where I need to be." He didn't know how true that was. As he walked away, I caught the faint slump of his shoulders. He wasn't the invincible Daniel anymore, and I had a front row seat to his unraveling. The best part, he still had no idea whose company he was talking down to me in. The first crack in the disguise came a week later. I was walking through the lobby when Miguel, the operations manager, stopped to greet me. "Good morning, Ms. Hale," he said with a respectful nod. A little too respectful. A few employees nearby glanced at us, curious. Daniel happened to be among them. His brows drew together. "Ms. Hale," he repeated, half under his breath, as if trying to make sense of it. I just smiled. "Morning, Miguel. I'll review those reports later." Miguel nodded again, then lowered his voice. "Of course, ma'am." He walked off, leaving Daniel staring after me. I could practically hear his thoughts spinning. The Emily he remembered, awkward, overlooked, ordinary, didn't get called ma'am by high-level managers. She didn't walk through the building like she belonged everywhere. Later that afternoon, I passed by the conference room. Daniel was inside, venting to a colleague. "Something's weird. That girl, Emily, why does management treat her like she's important?" His colleague shrugged. "Maybe she is." I kept walking, a small smile tugging at my lips. He was starting to sense the truth, but not enough yet. I wanted the suspense to build, like a puzzle he couldn't solve. Because soon, there'd be no hiding left. The revelation crept closer during another team meeting. I sat quietly along the wall, just another guest observer. The manager was presenting updates on the new mentorship program I had personally designed. This initiative, the manager said, was approved directly by our owner. They wanted to make sure employees at every level had opportunities to grow, not just the loudest ones in the room. I caught the flicker in Daniel's eyes. His jaw tightened, his pen tapping against the table. That exact phrase, not just the loudest ones, was something I had told him years ago when he mocked me for being too quiet in group projects. He'd laughed at me then, saying confidence always won. Now he was forced to nod like he agreed. After the meeting, I lingered in the hallway. Daniel stormed out, muttering to himself, "Who is this owner? And why are they obsessed with these ordinary values?" Ordinary. The word tasted different now. It was no longer an insult, it was power. One of the junior analysts approached me shyly. "Ms. Hale, thank you for pushing this program through. It's already changing things for people like me." I smiled warmly. "That means a lot. Keep working hard. You're exactly the kind of person we want to see grow here." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Daniel freeze. He heard every word, and I could feel the unease settling deeper in his chest. He still didn't know, but soon he would. The truth came out on a Friday afternoon in the boardroom. I hadn't planned to reveal myself just yet, but sometimes fate chooses the perfect moment. Daniel had been called in to present a recovery plan for his underperforming department. I sat at the far end of the long mahogany table, surrounded by senior managers. To him, I probably looked like some quiet consultant, not worth a second thought. He launched into his presentation, voice pitched with forced confidence. When he finished, the room fell silent. The numbers were still weak, the excuses thinner than ever. One of the directors cleared his throat. "Ultimately, this decision rests with the owner." Every head in the room turned toward me. I straightened my paper slowly, letting the silence stretch. Daniel's eyes darted around in confusion. Finally, they landed on me. "Wait, you." His voice cracked, louder than he meant. The realization hit him like a brick wall. The ordinary girl he once dismissed, the one he thought didn't stand out, was sitting at the head of the table with the final say over his career. "Yes," I said calmly. "I own this company." His mouth opened, then shut. For once, Daniel had no clever line, no smug laugh. Just shock. I glanced at his file, then back at him. "Your future here depends on results, not charm. I trust that's clear." The room was silent. His face burned red. And inside me, years of buried hurt melted into a quiet, satisfying triumph. Daniel avoided my eyes for the rest of that meeting. He sat stiffly, nodding when asked questions, his confidence shattered. When it ended, he gathered his papers with trembling hands and left without a word. I stayed behind, letting the others filter out, until the room was empty. Only then did I allow myself a deep breath, a smile tugging at my lips. Years ago, his words had nearly broken me. Too ordinary to succeed. I'd carried them like a scar, a constant whisper, in the back of my mind. But now, standing at the window of the corner office that was mine, I realized something important. He hadn't been wrong. I was ordinary. Ordinary in the way I worked harder than anyone else. Ordinary in the way I refused to quit. Ordinary in the way I turned discipline into power. And that ordinary girl now signed his paychecks. The following week, I passed him in the hallway. He slowed, opened his mouth as if to speak, then shut it again. His smirk was gone, replaced by something I never thought I'd see on him, respect, edged with shame. I didn't stop. I just walked by, head high, heart steady. For me, this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about proof. Proof that no one decides your worth, but you. And as Daniel clocked in at the company I had built, owned, and shaped, without even knowing the half of my journey, I finally felt free. The girl he called ordinary had won.